Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe. Today's the first in a bit of a how-to world build type of video. Now, I've been asked by a friend to do this kind of podcast, and it's kind of going to be a vague video. So I do apologize. But when it comes to writing and creation, it's a very vague process to an extent. And I'm going to try to concretize it as much as possible. But you have to bear in mind a lot of ideas when it comes to creativity all stem from the universal unconscious, which reading Jung and Campbell's books can really help when it comes to digging deep into your unconscious mind and digging out the archetypes and the kind of story and art that is universal and stems from overall universal human experiences and are absolute throughout all stories. No matter how many people try to deny or hide this, these are universal truths here. Whenever you create something, it stems from your innermost being, which you are part of an overall whole, humanity itself. So, just saying. Now, my map here. Now, I usually start with my world creation stuff or world building stuff. I generally try to have the map, or I try to at least have names. So this video is going to be the map part. Now, as you can see, I've got the Kingdom of Norwend up in the north. Feriar, which is a bit of a Nordic chunk to this map. Now, as you can see, it's got influences from the British Isles, obviously, and the Ocean of Naratsi, the Glacial Sea up in the north. And the thing here is to bear in mind, I'm looking to Britain, and it's cultural and literary history here for this part of my world. Now, I've got other parts of my world, like Gallia. I've got a Greek chunk I'm world building right now, and I'm setting up the mythology and the map for. But I've used different systems for maps and whatnot, so bear with me here. Now, this I did in Photoshop. Now, I don't have Photoshop because it was on my old computer and it's since kind of died. And I'm going to try to siphon off all the files from there. Now, I don't have access to all my maps because they were on that computer, so like I said, bear with. Erging is a visit and Khmer. I kind of needed two Welsh kind of kingdoms. I really like Welsh mythology and folklore. I really do love it. And I love Scottish culture and folklore. Well, my major is in Scottish history. So you have the Kingdom of Caledonia. Well, that's kind of obvious. The Kingdom of Norwend. So these two are basically the same kind of society, but if they had taken different kind of cultural routes. One is more, I guess you'd say I took some inspiration from the Pictish, what we know of the Picts, as well as the certain ideas regarding the Celtic people of Ireland and the pre-Pictish kingdom of, well, the Picti people. Well, sort of, because you have to bear in mind the Pictish people formed a kingdom, but then you have the Picti, or the Pects, as the Romans recounted them in, I think, Tacitus's books. And looking at that, it's possible to separate it from the later Pictish kingdom, which was later fused with the Dalriadan state into Alba, or Scotland. And knowing this history, I'm able to create two different fantasy kingdoms of sorts, which take two different kind of cultural routes. One is slightly more Scottish in nature. The other is Scottish, but it's a little different. And it's kind of tricky how to describe it. But think of it in some ways as a bit of a highland and lowland kingdom, although there are certainly highlands here. And, well, it's hard to describe. And as you can see, I also put Northern Isles here, just because I wanted to give them both their own isles. these Western Isles are going to be slightly more Caledonian, while the Northern Isles are going to be more with Norwind. Eriu, of course, Ireland. I love Irish history and mythology and a lot of their folklore. So as you can see, I've put a lot of stuff here. Well, a lot of emphasis on Ireland. Um, I really love the history of Brian Boru. So my fantasy novel, Caladbolg, which I'm gonna have to rewrite at some point because I really don't like it right now. You could purchase it over at on Amazon, but the thing is, I'm gonna need to rewrite it, so I'm gonna take it down soon in order to give it a quite the thorough rewrite. And you have Britia, which is obviously based off of England. Now, I basically made the map with the idea of Britain, although you could clearly see some differences. You have Sazonia, which is a bit of a also a bit of a Wales, but it's kind of different. It's like Welsh mixed with East Anglian, well, Breton kind of culture. It's hard to describe. I'm not doing a good job here. But the idea is that I create my maps, I create my rivers, my mountains, and my plains and farmlands, and I kind of go from there and go, I choose a culture, such as in this case, English, and I go from there and you make the terrain, you make the map, and from there you let the map kind of influence the history. Now the climate, the rivers, the mountains, the glens and the highlands and the lowlands and the firths and the banks and whatnot and the peninsulas, these will all form the local cultures, communities, and whatnot. And this is integral to building up your fantasy world. Now, you also need to build up your monarchies if you're trying to create kingdoms and queendoms and whatever, what have yous, and empires. Now, the thing here is we're looking at a couple of kingdoms here. And this, I wanted to divorce this kind of fantasy set of kingdoms from the mainland because too often people just simply base their fantasy off of, well, English lit and whatnot. And I wanted to separate it so that I can do the Germanic or German and the French and the Spanish and whatnot and separate each cultural group. So, yes, I did use some European influence with the mapping. I've also got ideas for two separate kinds of European maps where I'm going to expand on the mythology of both in different directions. One is called North Agenor and the other is South Agenor. And this has its basis in Agenor, the father of Europa, from classic mythology. Now, when it comes to the different parts of my societies and culture groups, I ended up taking the mythologies and folklores of each country. And I said, how many do I want? Okay, what can I do with each one of them? And I went from there. So the map creates the culture, but the culture is also the inspiration for the map, so to speak. Now, I know this sounds very vague, but the thing is, when you're building a culture, when you're building a map, you got to bear in mind that the map will influence the culture, but the culture should serve also as inspiration for the map. This is, I know, very vague, but it's just the way it works. Now, for Gallia, I've got various maps here because Gallia, I guess you could also call it the 12 Kingdoms. And, well, this is going to be very tricky. Let me see if I can kind of rotate this. All right. Yeah. This is Narentia. I know that you have Halvian here, but it's Narentia. It separates into two. Halvian is simply the part that ceded for a while into the Folkmaringian kingdom. Now let's take a look at this bad boy. This is Westria. Westria. It's French. Bay de Galvan. Galvan is an old mythological hero and whatnot. This is kind of an Italian area. Now, I'm using actual history to an extent as an inspiration, but I'm taking it in several different directions. the Amber Sea, the Germanian Sea right here. Now, Theodosia-Noble is obviously based off of and inspired by Constantinople. People don't seem to like using it as an inspiration for fantasy. I don't understand why. I love Byzantine history, so I had to use it. And of course, you have the northern states, which are all divided in as part of a Holy Roman Empire of sorts. This is a locality. Oh, then I get to my French novel. So, yeah, Chute de Naissance. So, yeah, that's pretty much my map how-to. I look to the culture, I look to the history, and I go, okay, well, I'm going to reshape some elements of the map. I'm going to make things slightly different. Now, my 12 kingdoms are basically France, but I'm taking in a vastly different direction from the history, and it's just a cultural inspiration from medieval France, and I go from there. And I'm having a lot of fun writing that. I've temporarily put it on hold for NaNoWriMo because I really want my one novel, which is inspired by Ivanhoe, and which is set in Britia. Notably, it's going to be starting from here, Aldchester, going all the way here. Actually, I might have to change the number of days it takes for that. So it'll actually be 2 weeks at least journey to here, maybe. Or maybe it should be a week and a half. Probably a week and a half. And from... No, that wouldn't make any sense. Anyways. And from the Realwood to Wealder River. And you've got the Avon River up in the north here. Now, the characters cross there and go to... I should add a map. Mountain, like, right here. In the right dab in the middle right here. So, this map obviously needs some adjustments. It's a continuous process. Creation and whatnot. So, yeah. If you enjoyed this video on the maps stuff, and if you want me to clarify, I'll make a separate video for that. So do leave a like, comment, share, and you could even tell me about your maps and creative process. And if you have them on DeviantArt or something, I'd love to take a look at them. I'd love to discuss maps with you guys. Don't forget to subscribe here. And if you like other fantasy stories from other authors, check out our Fantasy Corner. We've got great videos there. We cover mostly Tolkien these days, but we also cover Suikoden and Card Captors. And we're hoping to, down the road, once we're big enough, cover Dragonlance and even Prydain, as we really love those two universes. So, until next time, take care, and, well, I'll see you at the next world building video.